Greetings and welcome to Village Connector TV. My name is Glenn Garnes and I'm your host, and if this is your first time joining us on Village Connector TV, I'd like to welcome you to the Village. Village Connector TV is a service of our larger organization, Village Connector Community, where we focus on helping you invest in yourself through personal development. And in this segment, we interview personal development professionals who share their wisdom and expertise with you so that you can know where to go to invest in your number one asset, which is always going to be you. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Laura Mendelow of Mendelow Consulting, who's going to talk with us a little bit tonight about leadership. So Laura, I want to thank you for joining us on Village Connector TV.
Thanks, it's a pleasure being here.
Well, you know, we work real hard here to make sure that people get access to the right professionals, because we know how important it is, if you're going to invest in yourself, for you to have the talent to help you to nurture your talents. And so we're going to talk a little bit with you tonight about what you can tell us about leadership. But before we get into the leadership discussion, I'd like to find out a little bit more about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background academically?
Yeah, sure. So I've had a pretty straight and narrow career path. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and my master's degree is in organization development, which is a big word that basically means doing psychology in the workplace. As I tell my children, helping people get along at work. So that's
a big market for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which sometimes he's surprised, like they still need help with communicating. They're adults, and so I have to explain to him, yes, that is my whole job of helping people communicate.
Now your parents also have a background in their feet in both of those sides of the equation as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
So my mom is actually a psychologist, and my father started his own IT company back in the 70s. And so he's a business entrepreneur. So I really did kind of combine both of their career paths and combine them to psychology in the workplace.
Now let me ask you a personal question.
Yeah.
Was there any pressure from either of them for you to go into this career path?
My dad, I don't know if he was so happy that I majored in psychology because, you know, it seems to be the default field, and he wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And despite the fact that my mom's a psychologist, I realized early on that I didn't want to go into clinical psychology. So I was trying to figure out, how do I do more applied psychology? No pressure. They believed in me. They knew I was going to do something with it. And I definitely have that entrepreneurial spirit that I would say my father has instilled in me over the years.
Well, it was good that you were able to find a use for your academic degree in a non-traditional way, because so many people graduate, they don't go into their field of endeavor, and they end up not using any of the knowledge effectively.
Yeah,
so it's good that you found a real use for the psychology degrees. That's great. Now, after you completed your BA, I'm assuming you went to work at some point in time. So what did you do after that?
So my very first job was actually working at the University of Kentucky, of all places. I did grow up in the Midwest, in Cleveland, Ohio, but my first job, you just go where your first job takes you, right? So I ended up in Lexington, Kentucky, which was a great place actually to get started. And I worked in the Office for Experiential Education. So not experimental, but experiential, which basically means learning by doing, hands-on learning. It was a pretty cool experience that I was able to work with university students who had internships while they were going through school. And what I was able to do is design a course, a university course, that would teach them things they wouldn't learn in any other course. So for example, the Myers-Briggs, we went through, you know, people's differences. We learned about assertiveness and how to raise difficult conversations with your manager at work. And so there was all these different interpersonal skills training that university students, they were just getting exposed to in their internship, and they would definitely need it after college. But it was a great experience to be able to provide all of the supplemental learning that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Well, that sounded like a great program, because there's so much to be said for some of the soft skills that go into the real world with you versus the pure academic pursuits. So
exactly.
It sounded like the perfect combination for those students. So.
And I pretty much just carried that forward. So, you know, I actually engaged in a little bit of Outward Bound and go out in the ropes course, sing Kumbaya,
Oh,
a
that
little
used to be
bit
the
of
good
that. But, trust falls. I did do that a little bit. And, really actually continued to apply the learning by doing concept. But then this environment, it was actually taking corporate groups out in the trees. And so little by little, I was learning about team development. And eventually I said, there's got to be more to this than just playing games and hanging out in the trees. There has to be probably a little bit more. That's when I decided to go get my master's degree in organization development.
So what was your next employment situation as you were earning your master's degree?
So as I was earning my master's degree, I actually was in somewhat of an entrepreneurial role, working with one other person in also an experiential-based learning environment. So we did a lot of team development work. And as I was going through my master's program, I realized I wanted to go a little bit more mainstream. I wanted to know what it was like in big corporate America and really get that experience of leading teams, virtual teams, matrix teams. I wanted more of the mainstream experience. So I took a job at Booz Allen Hamilton and started there and had a 10-year career there.
Now, tell us a little bit about what Booz Allen does, just so people
Sure,
understand
it's
the
a large
role you
government.
play.
Sure, it's a large government consulting firm, and I actually had the role of an internal consultant. So my clients, if you will, were the top 3,000 executives and leaders in the company. So I would provide training opportunities. I managed the executive coaching program, looked at career planning, how to have career discussions with your employees. So a variety of different roles, but all within the learning and leadership department.
Now, you said you were there for 10 years.
Yeah.
So that puts you in a position where by the time you made a decision to go out and become a consultant on, outside in your own consultancy,
Right.
you were really ready for that because
Yeah.
you've basically been doing that internally for another company.
Yeah, and I had the experience that I was looking for. I wanted to know what it was like when you had a reorganization. I wanted to know what it was like when a company splits and what it felt like as a leader, and to go through some tough times too, actually, having to make tough choices and engage with your staff when performance wasn't, when they're not meeting performance expectations. So I really got to experience it. It's one thing to say, make time for leadership, conversations, and career, and connect with your staff. But when you're living it, it's like, I don't have time for this. And I got to feel that. So that was important to me, to have lived through what it feels like to be a leader and not just teach leadership skills without knowing what the experience is like.
So you started off with experiential learning. You moved to partially executive coaching internally with Booz Allen. And then you developed an interest in leadership. So what made you gravitate and focus on leadership after you had a chance to try all those things?
Yeah, so I think it was an evolution perhaps of working with teams. And then as I worked with the teams, I saw the influence that leaders have, and that the leaders are really creating the culture for that team. And I recognized the impact I could have if I worked with the leaders and then helped them, because they had the influence over making changes and could really take a team that maybe wasn't performing well and really get them to a high performing team. So I think I recognized the value of working with the leaders themselves. And I would say also during that time, I also had 2 children. And while I was working at Booz Allen full time, and my oldest son, as they say in the literature, he was a highly spirited child. It's a nice way to say he had a lot of energy.
Yeah, that's the polite way of saying too much to handle.
Yeah. And here I am teaching leadership, teaching interpersonal skills, and I can't manage that. I was having a hard time connecting with my own son. He was my firstborn, and I'm thinking, if I can't figure this out, like I have a toolkit of skills and strategies, and if I can't figure this out, how are other parents managing this? And so I really worked. I mean, it was important, obviously, as my son. It was important for me to work on that relationship and change my outlook and framework and how I viewed him. So a lot of it I mean, he's a great kid. Life didn't come easy to him early on, but he's a great kid, and he's an amazing person today. But I needed to change some things, and I realized what I was working on really ended up being leadership behaviors. And then as soon as I realized, and we were making progress, I realized I was also becoming a stronger leader at work. So to me, it was just this huge aha to say, life's about leadership. Life's about showing up as a leader to your family, to your community, to your teammates, to your colleagues, whoever. But when you have that mindset and you're intentional about how you want to show up, I found fulfillment in my life. I found more peace, more happiness, and just overall fulfillment.
And you have a greater impact, as you pointed out, with what you're doing to prepare leaders to have a greater impact with the people that they lead.
Right.
You create a ripple effect that really has an impact on people in places that you might not ever visit or know of.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about leadership as it related to your relationship with your son. So did that give you some unique insight into how to work with parents? Is that part of your consultancy?
So I did. I started working with parents and families. I'm engaged in the school system. I was engaged in a program where I worked with the school counselor. Maybe this is unique to our school district, but the school counselor would often give a lesson to the students, something related to counseling, like reputation or appreciating other people, or some concept that she wanted the kids to learn. So then I would take that same concept and I would offer monthly programs for the parents. Because what I realized is none of the parents even knew their kids were learning this at school. And I'm like, this is amazing topics and really good information. So I would teach the parents so they got it from an adult learning perspective, and then also work with them on figuring out how to implement some of the strategies at home. So it's not only coming from the school, how to keep it up at home. And that was really powerful, really a great program that I could connect my passion for leadership and also support what the school was doing to help both the kids and the parents.
Well, that's a great place to be, because you're talking about having an impact where, kids are young, very impressionable, and parents know that they don't come with an owner's manual that explains what to do with them once you have them.
Yeah.
So being able to give that kind of guidance, I can see where that can have an incredible impact. And I suspect that some of those parents that are career professionals probably found those same skills helpful in their work environment.
Exactly.
But you also work with career professionals as well.
Right, right. So I have my hands in both buckets. I did have a vision at first when I left the corporate job. I thought maybe I'll just focus on parents. But then I realized the bigger picture here is leadership. It really is about leadership. And I still have a passion for working inside an organization. And you spend most of your day at work. If you're a working if you're a working parent or a working person, you spend most of your day there. So if I could help people have more successful relationships even at work, produce more quality, effective products, help impact the world in some way, in some cases, depending on the clients I'm working with, that was really important to me as well. So I do have my hand in both domains, in the work environment and in the home.
Well, that's good, because it's a good balance, because people need that. Sometimes we learn skills in the workplace. We don't realize they have application in our home as parents, or as even as older siblings and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's nice that you're able to show the balance and show where those things are relevant, because that also makes it more likely that people will see the investment being worthwhile, since they can use it in two environments.
Yeah, I have a funny story
Sure.
to share with you. So I did a workshop one day, and I was, I had my flip chart paper, as any good facilitator has, and I'm coming home from the workshop, and I'm carrying the flip chart under my arm, and I walk in the door, and my son sees me with all my equipment and everything, and he's like, "What's that, Mom?" And I was like, "Oh, this is just flip chart paper we used to take notes like this in the workshop." And he said, "Yeah, but what's on it? What's written on it?" And I said, "Oh, those are ground rules." And he's really into rules. He likes order, he likes structure. And he's like, what is ground rules? And I said, well, that's really the foundation of how we want to work together. Those are our agreements of how we want to work together before we start the session. And he's like, wow, we should have that in our house.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, yes, we should. Why didn't I think of that? It was like he told me.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Yeah, it didn't even dawn on me. So we actually sat down that night as a family. My kids could barely spell. I took a picture. I've saved it to this day. They could barely spell, but they're writing out their expectations of each other. It became our family values. And it had never dawned on me
All right,
to
so
do
let
it.
me give you a little marketing coaching.
Okay.
That's great Facebook content.
Yeah, that's true. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, leadership obviously is a broad topic. We know that you work with both parents and kids, and you work with career professionals, leaders in the workplace. What makes what you do different from what other people would consider to be leadership development?
Yeah. Well, what I notice, and I've worked with a lot of models, and I'm certified in a lot of assessment tools, what I notice is that many leadership tools are very static. They have the good qualities. You take an assessment, you get this thick booklet, and you have, here's all the good things about you, and here are all the weaknesses, but they're called, opportunities or areas for development. And then you have to pick one or two and come up with some action plan. And so what's really different about what I do is, one, we provide leadership in a way that's more representative of how reality is. In other words, we see behaviors as dynamic relationships. So we don't believe you should only be supportive or only be directive as a leader. We believe in both, the both and concept. And so the relationship between the behaviors is what becomes important, not that you have these behaviors and those behaviors. We believe behaviors are all neutral, and you can either dial it up or dial it down, and it can work for you, and sometimes it works against you if you overdo it. So it's a very forgiving model, and I think very realistic. So the other piece to that is that many leadership models almost pitch it in a way of, here's the ideal leader. If you do these things, you're going to become a great leader. And we believe that you need to be adaptable. You actually need to be in this fluid process. It's more about emotional intelligence to recognize your surroundings, recognize the context in which you're working in, so you know what's needed at any given time. And that we assume you're going to make mistakes. We don't train people to not make mistakes. We assume mistakes will happen, and we teach people to have less judgment on themselves, be less critical, and focus on recovery. So that happened, what do you do to recover? Because that's actually when leaders shine.
Well, I can see where that would be important, because I've been in environments where you could give two people a list of things to do, checklist. And one will be successful with, and the other one won't. And it's because there is no flow chart, there is no blueprint that everyone can follow. People have to have a variety of skills that they work with based on what their personalities are, who they are as an individual. So.
And who they're working with, and those personalities.
Exactly. So I can see where that would benefit, how that would benefit leaders who, obviously they're individuals first. Mm-hmm. So they have to consider their individuality in their leadership style and their approach. You can't just give them the same cookie cutter approach.
Yeah. I had a participant once in my class who was literally a rocket scientist.
Oh my goodness.
Literally a rocket scientist. So he came up to me afterwards, he goes, Laura, I just want you to know I am a rocket scientist, and I want you to know this leadership stuff, it is harder than rocket science. So that was comforting to hear that from him, because it is a struggle, and you go through these tensions every day, and oftentimes there is no solution. And to be able to hold complexity and challenges and just know you're holding that space for others, and sometimes you can't make the decision or find the solution, those are the real elements that we teach as a leader.
Now, even though it can be rocket science level, you have the ability to simplify and to shorten people's learning curve and make it possible for them to assimilate these principles without having to to figure it all out on their
Yeah.
own. That's the whole point of your consultancy.
Exactly. We actually did research, and I've been studying leadership development since the 90s. And we work with neuroscientists, we work with psychologists, so we have a whole staff of people that come together, and we do a lot of research to determine what models actually are effective and why. And then we simplify it so we can provide a framework, at least a framework to get started. It might not work perfectly to your situation, but it at least gives you a launching pad so you can grab onto these concepts. And then we teach the practical tools. We get down to the nitty-gritty. Here's how you say things. Here's the language you should use. So it is big picture because we want people to understand the philosophy and think differently as a leader, but we also have those concrete action steps as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit. Let's give people an opportunity to know how to get connected to you.
Sure.
You've got your consultancy.
Right.
And your website is mendelowconsulting.com.
Exactly.
Can we get that up on the screen for people so that we can make sure that they know where they're going? So it's mendelowconsulting.com.
Right.
You also participate in the Learning Center for Village Connector Education. So right from our website, villageconnector.com, people can find you in the Learning Center. I think we have you're actually listed there both under personal development and professional development. So you're working with parents under the personal development side and career professionals in the professional development side.
Right.
So we can get you connected there through villageconnector.com. If you go to the main website, you can actually get connected to Laura through the Learning Center, which is very, very easily marked. But wherever you go, whether it's her main website at Mendelow Consulting, let's bring that one back up because Village Connector, obviously, people can figure that out very quickly. mendelowconsulting.com. What can they expect to find there? What's the easiest way to get connected with you when they get there?
Well, you can quickly send me an email if you just want to contact me. I also have something pretty unique, I feel, on that site that might be a fun way to get to know my services without paying anything, is something that I call an iCoach. And what that provides is you just give us just 3 bits of information. So your email, and we need to know when your performance reviews are and when your fiscal year is. And what we do with that information is we send you relevant emails to help you look really good as a leader.
Oh my goodness.
That connect to your business cycle. So if we know your performance reviews, for example, are coming up in 6 months, we just send you a little tickler reminder to say, hey, we notice your performance reviews are coming up in 6 months. If you haven't had your career conversation, cut and paste, send this email to your employees today. And here are 3 great questions to get them thinking about their careers. We try to make it as easy as possible so you can really focus on the business and you don't forget about the cycle of the people development throughout. So
that's a very unique resource. I've never heard anyone have something like that before.
Yeah, as soon as we got it to work behind the scenes, the technical part of it, once that was good to go, it's been a great resource. People really enjoy that. And again, it's free, and it's a way to just tap in to see the practical side of the business as well as our overall philosophies of leadership.
Okay, so they can get that over at mendelowconsulting.com.
Right.
And they'll find the link for that.
And you'll see it on the homepage. You can also just click on iCoach or the resource tab. So there's many ways you can find that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you also, again, you work with parents, you work with the schools themselves, and you work with career professionals. If someone just wanted to reach out to you to have a dialogue, a conversation with you before deciding to retain you, can they reach you by telephone as well?
Sure. Yeah, my phone number is listed on the site. It's listed also in the overview program at Village Connector.
Fantastic.
And so, yeah, I welcome phone calls. I welcome email. However you want to reach me. If you reach me through LinkedIn, it might be a little bit of a delay to get back to you, but I'm still a Gen X, but I do my best to keep up with all the technology.
All right, folks, so you heard it from her. She would have you contact her through her website at mendelowconsulting.com or through our villageconnector.com website. Stay away from the LinkedIn profile. especially if you're interested in having something done sooner rather than later. Well, Laura, I want to thank you so much for joining us on Village Connector TV tonight. It's fantastic to get a chance to find out more about what you do and who you do it for. And I certainly hope you'll take the time to take advantage of the resources that Laura brings to the table for you. If you are a career professional, one of the most important things that you can do is to develop your leadership talent. That's how you put yourself in a position to be recognized and to evolve and be promoted and to achieve at the highest level you can. If you're a parent and you've got children, one of the most impactful ways that you can work with your children is to make sure that you are an active participant in their lives and that you are able to communicate with them in ways that inspire them. Laura can help you with both of those things, so be sure to take advantage of that. Again, Laura, I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to having you around in the Village.
Sounds good. Thank
And for the rest of you, we want to thank you for joining us tonight in the Village as well. We encourage you, if you haven't already joined our official community mailing list, to go to villageconnector.com and click on the link just below the main slider to add your name and your email address to our mailing list so that you can be notified of all the events that we have, all the resources we have. We're very good about developing resources we know will make a difference in your life, and we certainly hope you'll take advantage of them. So on behalf of Laura Mendelow, my name is Glenn Garnes, thanking you for joining us on Village Connector TV.